Hello everybody and welcome back to Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson, and today I have another update video for you, and this time it's all about my beautiful plant that I have hanging next to me here, this lovely big bush. This is my Epipremnum aureum Enjoy. And I did a video on these plants a while back when I first bought them. I did a raid in the rack video and I had them in two separate pots and I had them hanging in my window and they have done fantastic for me. Now, this was the second time that I bought this kind of plant because I'd bought them before and they had never worked out for me. They always got yellow leaves and they started browning out and they just withered away and died very quickly. And I found that these plants, to keep them happy and sustainable, you have to have them in a bright, indirect position in your home because they have this variegation in the leaves, the white and the green, and that means they don't have as much chlorophyll in the leaves as other plants that are green do. So they will not cope very well if it's too dark. If you bring them to your home from somewhere where it's been a bright greenhouse or a bright garden centre, it will be such a shock to their system that they don't really cope very well with it for very long. But mine were in the window, as I said, and even though this is a dark room in my indoor terrace garden here, they have survived and they have coped very well. All I've done is water them thoroughly through and then let them dry out and then water them through again. I've never let them sit in any kind of water for too long. They don't like that. They can cope with periods of drought, but not too long either. But if they do, this plant talks to you, the leaves will get thinner, they will wrinkle a little bit, and you'll know it's time to go in and water your plant. And then those leaves will just puff up and plump up again as right as rain, as long as they have the light that they need to sustain them as well. So my two plants, I decided they were getting a little bit long and straggly in their vines, just them in these two pots on their own. I needed a few more plants in one pot to give me a nice and thicker effect that I really wanted. And that's why I put them all together in this one pot here. And also to sustain this plant, I've had it outside in my outdoor terrace garden all summer this year. And this plant has absolutely loved and appreciated that. It's grown out more leaves, it got a much more whiter variegation than being in my indoor terrace garden, and it has plumped up very beautifully. So I'm going to bring it in a moment to give you a closer look at this wonderful plant. But at the same time, I want to let you know this plant is very difficult to keep the variegated green and white only. It's very, very common for this plant to get browning patches in the leaves, browning areas, yellowing leaves. And what I've done is, of course, any yellow leaf, just pluck all those off. They're dead, they're no good for the plant anymore. And browning patches on the leaves, for the most part, I've just left those leaves alone. If it's a big area, maybe now and again I've gone and trimmed off a little bit. You can do that and it will seal over and the rest of the leaf will be fine. Otherwise, I've gone in and I've just taken off whole leaves that have browned out too much and so forth. And that encourages the plant to produce new leaves. So don't be afraid to go in and prune off leaves that you don't think are looking that good. But if you're not that worried, then leave them on the plant because the plant can still photosynthesize on the fresh material in the leaf. That still helps the plant. So let me give you a closer look at this plant and you'll see exactly what I mean. So here we go. This is my beautiful plant closer up. You can see it's got these lovely green and white leaves going on it. They're very plump and so forth. I've actually just given this plant a good watering. I take it into my bathroom, I soak it through, and I spray the whole plant over vigorously on the back side of the leaves, the front side, on the top, everywhere, to make sure there are no insects or anything on this plant, because this plant can also get thrips like many of these other viney plants. But for the most part, this plant has been doing very, very well for me. And as I said, have a closer look at those leaves. Aren't they gorgeous? And of course you can see at the top, the plant is thinner. That's where there's less light. But at the same time, if you look at a leaf like this one here, look how big it's getting compared to my hand. That's a big leaf. This one's a big leaf. So it's doing very well. Look at the variegation. It's absolutely gorgeous. So even though there are leaves with browning patches and so forth on this plant, I don't mind, and neither should you. And you should definitely not be worrying about it if your plant is looking as lush as this anyway. It's all a natural part of your plant's being. Okay, we can't have 100% perfect plants all the time. We're not 100% perfect all the time either. I've got blemishes all over me. It doesn't matter, it's life. So just appreciate your plant for the way it is. It's unique. My plant is unique and it's doing very well for me. This is doing this well even though my plant is in a lower light condition. And this is telling me my plant has got used to the environment it's in. So it takes a good amount of time for a plant to get used to the environment it's in. And I really do suggest that you do not replant the plant when you bring it home if you do not need to. We have these lovely pots we want to put plants in and so forth. And so you know what? I have replanted so many plants as soon as I brought them home. I haven't had the patience. I haven't wanted to wait. Many of the plants have done fine. Many have struggled for a while and some have really dived because they didn't like it at all. So I have learnt now to try and be as patient as possible. I leave my plants in their original pots as long as I can. So these two plants were in their original plastic pots I brought them in, hanging up in my indoor terrace garden for around a year before I repotted them this summer and had them outside as one grouping together, and they've transplanted fantastically. They transplanted fantastically at the same time because I didn't touch their roots at all. I lifted them up, put them in this pot, and I squeezed soil around where there were gaps, and that's it. I did not want to disturb the roots on this plant because I know that this plant is actually very sensitive to repotting. You will find if you bring it home and repot it, it will struggle. So be aware of that. Give it time. Let it really adjust, especially if it's a lower light condition. It's going to need to adjust the chlorophyll in its leaves. It will become more green in the white areas and so forth to cope with that, and that's fine, accept it. But if you can, get this plant and keep it in a bright, indirect position and you will get the brightest white and green variegations in your plant. It will look fantastic. But this is mine. In the back corner of my room. Now that wall there is an east-facing wall. The wall behind me is a south-facing wall. In front of the camera is a north-facing wall, and there where I have windows in my indoor terrace garden is towards the west. So you can see there is no natural light getting into my house plants here apart from a little bit that comes in from the west. It's just grow lights. And here at the back I have some lamps that face towards these plants, normal LED lights, not special grow lights. And that is sustaining my plants as they are, because now I've learned that if I give them a long period outside during the summer, that helps them to get through the winter months too. So I will put as many of these plants in here outside every single year from now on, because that really has boosted them a lot and given them the energy to get through this darker period. But I am pleased with this plant. It's an absolutely beautiful plant, and I wouldn't suggest this plant as a beginner plant. I would suggest this plant to be an intermediate plant. It's not as easy as the other plants in the Epipremnum family. For example, Epipremnum aureum golden, devil's ivy, the money plant, golden pothos, or whatever you want to call it. That plant basically can look after itself and keep the variegation in a lower light condition and so forth. But this plant needs a lot more time and tender loving care to get it used to the environment. So just remember that if you go and buy one of these and it doesn't look good for a while, give it a chance, keep it in the same place, don't move it around all over the place, but make sure you give it enough light. So that's basically all I wanted to do. I wanted to show you this plant, an update of how it's doing, that I've managed to keep it going for over a year, and I'm absolutely loving it. So get out there, find yourself a lovely new house plant to fill up your home with love and joy, because these beings, they just make me so happy all the time. It's amazing. So all I have to say now is thank you very much once again for watching Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson. Please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when my next video will be coming up. And I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.